Squirrel, I think I'm depressed. Depressed? What makes you say that? Just been feeling down and tired lately. Can you say more about how it feels in your body? I feel like this sort of embodied sadness, like I can just feel it in my face. I don't sleep well. I notice I'm really sensitive to pain, like it makes me very irritable. Huh, and how long have you felt like this? I'm not exactly sure, but I have memories of these types of feelings from when I was a kid, so I think 25 or 30 years. Holy shit! I'm sorry to hear that. That's a very long time. Yeah, you know what? That's outrageous! What the hell kind of society is this that people are that fucking depressed? It's bullshit! Thank you, Rage Rabbit, for that expression of love in the form of anger. Take your spiritual mumbo-jumbo and stick it up your caboose! And how did you make it through 20 or 30 years of this? I spent a lot of time pretending everything was fine until I just couldn't pretend anymore, and I realized I was completely stuck in life. And that was a few years ago. Yes, and you're still stuck. You're talking to animals in the woods. Tell me, does it pay well talking to the animals? How are the benefits? Yeah, you know what? That worry fox is right. Where's your 1.5 houses and 1.5 minivans? What the hell are you doing with your life? Okay, so first I want to recognize that you're aware of your problem. And I think awareness is greatly undervalued. How can you heal if you don't know what's wrong? What good is it to be aware that you're stuck? Awareness has its own kind of power. You have to trust that things will begin to shift just with your awareness. I think it's vitally important also that when you're suffering in something like depression, that you take it as an invitation for compassion, for self-compassion. Part of that is taking the best care you can of your body, making sure your basic needs are being met: sleep, safety, connection to other beings. It's also very important to proceed with caution when you're listening to those messages in your head. Yes, like what a big loser you are and how nobody loves you and you'll always be alone and you'll never have any money and you'll never amount. Yes, exactly. Messages like that. I want to be very clear here. The ego is not your enemy. But in depression, the ego does become a kind of dictator. In the good times, your ego keeps you alive. It finds you a mate. It sparks your imagination and makes you create art and build beautiful things. And in the best case, it's part of an ecosystem that is your whole being, your body, your spirit, your heart, and so on. But in depression, the ego runs the show, and watch out. When the ego runs amok, it's very rigid. It's very certain about everything. In the good times, your ego makes sense of the world. It tells stories. It makes meaning. In the bad times, it turns these stories against you. I'm a loser, and I'll always be a loser. I'm not worthy of love. and I'll never be worthy of love. I'll always be depressed. I deserve to be depressed. Let me be clear. There's nothing objectively true about any of these stories, and they're terrible stories. But how many people tell themselves these stories every day? It's horrible. You know, I don't believe there's a place called hell deep underground where there's a guy in a red onesie stabbing people with a pitchfork. I think hell is here on earth, and it's in statements like, I am not worthy of love. I hate myself. I'm worthless. Horrible. So I think it's vitally important to drive a wedge into those stories that your ego is telling you when you're in depression. One way to do that is with mindfulness, simply being aware that these are just stories passing through from your ego, and you don't need to own them. They're not the truth. Sometimes we need to treat our egos like a dumb friend. You love them, but you don't have to listen to them. Let me be very honest, though. This is difficult work because the ego likes to run the show, and it likes you to think that it is everything. It is your entire consciousness. I'm going to let you in on a little secret, though. It's not your consciousness. It's just one little part of it. That being said, if you're finding your experiences with depression to be overwhelming, it's so important that you get help. Do not listen to your ego on this point. Just preserve life until the depression passes, until you can get a handle on it.